Ah, there you are, my dear friend. I'd hoped you might wander this way before the fire burned too low. You've arrived at just the right moment. The night has settled in its softest cloak, and the last light lingers only in memory. Come, sit, right here beside me. There's a patch of moss just wide enough for the two of us, and it remembers the warmth of the sun from earlier. It's thick, springy, and cool to the touch, almost like resting atop a woven bed of forest sighs. Lean back if you'd like. There's a stone just behind us. Smooth and slanted, it cradles the spine better than most chairs ever could. I've pressed my back to it more nights than I can count, always finding it unchanged and oddly kind. Breathe with me, just for a moment. In and out, there. Can you feel it too? That hush in the air, not silence, no, not emptiness, but a stillness full of something sacred. Like the world itself is exhaling, the lantern's already lit. I sparked it before dusk fully fell. Its glow is low now, not bright, not showy, just enough to gild the stones in a soft gold, the kind that flickers and sways with the rhythm of the fire's breath. You'll see the smoke curling upward, lazy and pale, dancing its slow spiral toward the tree limbs overhead. It carries the scent of pine resin and the faintest whisper of clove from the herb I tucked into the base. I've always liked that smell. It reminds me of warm kitchens and old wooden chests. The moss beneath us is soft tonight, damp in places, but not wet. It gives under the weight of an elbow or heel, as though it's been waiting, preparing to hold us all this time. Even the crickets have grown quieter, haven't they? As if they too are listening, or dreaming. You may hear the stream if you listen carefully, far off at the bottom of the slope. It's just a thin ribbon this time of year, but it sings nonetheless, not with the voice of spring torrents. No, this is the stream's lullaby. Slow, rounded sounds, like pebbles turning over in their sleep. It's a good place we found. Quiet, familiar, and somehow always new. I've been here many nights, and yet each one feels a little different. Some nights the wind speaks. Other nights, it simply listens. Tonight, I think it watches. Gently, from a distance. There's no rush to it, just the brush of cool air on the back of the neck, a reminder that the stars have begun to blink overhead, and the fire has work to do keeping the dark at bay. And oh, the stars, though we can't quite see them from under this willow's great arms. I know they're above us, watching too, silent as they've always been, but not distant. Never distant. You look tired, my friend, not in a worrisome way, just worn down a little, as stones are by rivers, slowly and softly over time. That's all right. That's how the best of us are shaped. You've come to the right place for rest. Here, no one asks anything of you, not even the night. Let the weight fall from your shoulders. You can pick it back up when dawn comes, if you wish. But for now, just be. The earth beneath us is old, older than any story I know. And tonight, it chooses to hold us. Without question, without hurry. Let the quiet stretch out. Let the fire murmur. Let your breath slow until it joins the rhythm of the forest. You're not alone here. Not now. Not while I'm beside you. So stay, won't you? Just a while longer. Let the night unfold around us like a woolen blanket. And if sleep comes, let it take you gently, like leaves drifting on water. We're safe here. We are seen and held, and still, everything else can wait. Everything else already knows. Breathe in deep, my friend. Do you feel it? That coolness on the air, like the mountain itself is sighing after a long day. We're nestled now in the arms of these old foothills, where time stretches out like a sleeping cat, long, unbothered, and entirely unhurried. There's a quiet here that knows no beginning or end. It doesn't demand silence, it simply is silent, the kind that settles not just around you but within you, filling the hollow spaces you didn't know were aching. I've come to this mountain many times, never in haste, never with purpose, louder than peace, always to rest, always to remember. And tonight, with you beside me, I feel I've returned, not arrived. These hills have been here longer than the memory of men. Before swords gleamed and stories were told, before stone towers climbed the sky, the mountain waited, and it still waits now, patient and whole, untouched by the worries that rattle around the lowlands. There is something deeply reassuring in that, isn't there? To know a place can simply exist, without being asked to do more. Do you smell it? That faint, sweet breath of cedar carried in the air. It comes and goes like a ghost of the day still lingering in the bark. And beneath it, just a trace of moss and water, clean and old. That's the scent of peace to me, not the kind found in treaties or words, but the kind you feel when you realize there's nothing left to carry. The pines here are tall, staggeringly so. They rise like ancient cathedral spires, solemn and noble, their roots grasping the hillside like hands on an old prayer. Dew clings to their needles, catching what little moonlight filters through the mist. You can see it if you tilt your head just so. Glints of silver, resting on green like stars scattered through the trees. The mountain wears them like jewels, but never boastfully. Down below, far enough to be felt more than heard, a small brook winds through stone and soil, whispering as it goes. It doesn't rush. It hums. You could sit beside it for hours and never tire of its voice. Sometimes I have, letting the sound trickle into me, smoothing the edges of thought, until only the water remained. And listen, hear that? Somewhere beyond the trees a night bird calls, low and steady, its cry wrapped in velvet hush, not lonely, just distant, like it's singing to the dark itself, a lullaby meant for no one, and for everyone. That call always reminds me how wide the world is, how much of it lives without need for words or witness. Isn't that beautiful, that so much can thrive quietly, without ever asking to be seen? The ground beneath us is blanketed in ferns, wide, feathery things that press against one another like sleeping companions. When the fog rolls low, as it has tonight, it weaves between them in slow curls, soft and silvery, as though the earth were exhaling its dreams. Each step on these trails is hushed, cushioned by the damp, spongy carpet of centuries. Nothing here startles, nothing here shouts. You'll notice, I think, how the air itself feels thicker here, but not heavy. No, more like embracing, like the mountain wraps its arms around you the moment you step into its hush. You can feel it in your chest, in your shoulders, in your bones. It invites stillness without ever asking aloud. There's an alcove just above where we sit, stone-arched, shaped by rain and time. I've taken shelter there before. It catches the wind and bends it, softens it, so even the breeze has a rounded edge. I used to lie on my back just there, staring upward at the faint cracks in the rock above me, imagining I could trace stories in the way the shadows gathered. Perhaps I still do, There's a comfort in the old shapes, the ones that never change. It is strange, in a lovely sort of way, how a place can become a part of you, not through grand memory or dramatic event, but through familiarity, through quiet, through being still with it again and again, until the boundaries between self and stone grow thin. This mountain has cradled my rest more times than I remember, and I think I have loved it in return, though it has never once asked me to. The stars are shy tonight. The mist has hidden them, but I do not mind. Some nights ask for grandeur. Others ask for intimacy. Tonight is the latter. The dark presses close, not with menace, but with gentleness. A woolen kind of dark, thick and soft, wrapping around our little fire without ever smothering its glow. That glow, by the way, look how it dances on the nearby stones. Every so often the fire flickers just enough to send a golden wave rippling across the moss. I like watching that. It reminds me of stories told beside hearths, of hands warmed and bread broken. Firelight makes companions of us all, doesn't it? Here, amid this gentle wilderness, it is easy to forget the things that clamor elsewhere. The duties, the noise, the constant motion. None of it follows me here. I imagine it's the same for you, my friend. Whatever burdens clung to your shoulders before you arrived, leave them. The mountain does not mind them, but it does not need them either. It is a place for setting things down. I've always thought there was a kind of grace in how the land carries on without us, how the moss grows without an audience, how the stones rest without apology. The trees do not hurry, the brook does not strive, and yet everything here thrives in its own quiet way. There's a lesson in that, though I've never put it into words well, only felt it, deep down, where the words don't quite reach. If you stay long enough, you may begin to notice it too. That sensation that the world is wider than we are, and yet somehow also more intimate. That the wind through pine is not just sound, but conversation. That the light on your hands is not just warmth, but wealth. That the rhythm of water and breath and sleep are all echoes of the same lullaby, hummed across centuries. This place, it holds memory without keeping score. It offers comfort without condition. And I, in return, offer it my quiet presence, my slowing heart, my sleeping thought. So let us stay a while longer, you and I. Let the fog curl around us like a shawl. Let the sounds of the mountain cradle your ears. There is nothing to chase, nothing to prove, only this moment, this breath, this shared hush. Yes, the mountain has always been a place of retreat for me. Not to escape life, but to remember what it feels like to simply be. And now that you're here, dear friend, I believe it has become that place for you too. The warmth from the fire settles nicely, doesn't it? Right there, just beneath the ribs, where the breath likes to linger on its way out. I've always liked this part of the night, the hour when things slow, not just around us, but inside us too. Even the stones seem to sigh in relief beneath the weight of all we've set down. I've loosened my armor tonight. The old straps creak a little, leather softened by years and weather. It's not much more than a ceremonial weight these days, really. I wear it not for defense, but for memory, and because it holds the shape of who I used to be. But even so, I'm glad to let it breathe a bit. Let the wind reach my back, and the fire kiss the chill away from my chest. My knees are drawn up slightly beneath the folds of my cloak. It helps keep the warmth in. but also it just feels right, like curling into the shape of rest itself. The cloak. Well, this one's been with me longer than I can recall. Stitched and restitched in places. The edges frayed, like old stories told too many times. And yet it still holds the night at bay, better than anything new ever could. It smells of smoke and pine, and long ago winters. I think you'd like it. Here, feel that. Worn smooth as river stone right where the shoulder folds. That's where I always tug it close when sleep comes calling. In my lap an old journal rests, just leather and thread. Nothing grand. The pages inside are only half filled, though I've carried it with me for years. Some nights I'll scribble a memory of a stone that caught the morning light just right, or a bird that sang a tune I didn't know I'd remembered. Other nights I sketch, not well, mind you, but enough to mark a moment, stones and stars mostly. I've always loved those, the grounded and the eternal. What better balance is there? You know, I don't write to be read, and I never draw to impress. I simply do it to remember, because in remembering, I find myself again, not the younger self, who galloped and charged and shouted to the wind. No, the quieter self, who sat long enough to see how the dew clings to grass like tiny glass beads. The self who listens now more than he speaks. That self is who remains. I haven't fought in years, haven't lifted my sword for anything more than a fallen branch or a stubborn knot of rope. And truth be told, I don't miss it. Not the noise, not the heaviness. There was a time, yes, when I thought glory came with steel and banners, but now I think glory is just another name for being known, and I've come to find that I'd rather be understood than remembered. Out here in these quiet places, there's no need for titles or tales, no eyes watching, no ears listening for the next grand deed, only the wind, the flame, the earth, and perhaps, on a lucky night such as this, a friend beside me lending warmth with their presence alone. You see, solitude has never been loneliness to me, not truly. It has been space wide and welcome, a room without walls, where my thoughts can stretch out, wander a bit, and then settle like leaves on still water. In solitude, I've learned the music of my own breath, the rhythm of my heartbeat, as it slows, and in that slowness, I've discovered things I never had time to notice before. Like how shadows fall differently depending on the shape of the land, how the wind can carry stories if you're quiet enough to hear them, how the moon seems to whisper encouragement when it slips between branches, and how sitting still beside another soul, just like we are now, can be the most intimate kind of peace. There was a time I measured my worth in distance traveled, banners raised, names recalled, but now I measure it in evenings like this, in how softly I speak, in how gently I regard the world. So here I am, a knight still, in name and in memory, but not in battle. No, I've laid those days down like a tired cloak at the foot of a warm bed, and in their place I've gathered moments, quiet ones, sacred in their smallness, moments like the glow of a lantern on your friend's face, or the weight of a journal on your lap full of nothing and everything at once. Sometimes I wonder what the younger me would think, seeing me now, resting instead of riding, whispering instead of shouting. But then again, I think he'd understand. Deep down, he always wanted this. A place to breathe, a time to be soft, a night that asked nothing of him. And you, dear friend, you make this night fuller still. just by sitting with me, by breathing beside me, by being. That's more than enough. So let us rest together. Let the fire's voice replace our own. Let the wind do the speaking now. My thoughts are calm, my heart unhurried, and though I may still carry the look of a knight, what I truly am now is simply someone who knows how to sit still, who knows how to remember, and who knows how to share silence without needing to fill it. Here in this quiet, with you beside me, I think I've never felt more whole. Yes. You see, my friend, not all journeys begin with a trumpet call. Some begin with silence, with stillness, with a single footstep that doesn't echo. Years ago now, though I couldn't say quite how many, a season came upon me that felt unusually quiet. Not the kind of quiet that makes one restless, mind you, but the kind that invites listening. I was staying not far from here, on the other side of the ridge where the lowlands meet the first dark fringe of the forest. And one morning, without reason or summons, I wandered beyond the familiar bend in the trail, just past a little grove of holly and ash, and found something I hadn't seen in years. A stone, half buried, weathered, crooked, leaning like an old man mid-thought. Moss curled around its edges, and a tiny sprig of violet had made a home in its shadow. It bore no markings, I could see, not anymore, but something in me recognized it, not as a signpost or a marker, but as a memory. It was a waystone. Once, long ago, this trail had been part of an old pilgrimage path, traced by barefoot travelers and solemn wanderers seeking places of prayer, of peace, of reflection. The stones had been placed to guide them gently along the way. They were not meant to instruct or command, only to whisper, "Yes, this is still the path." Most had forgotten the route. The forest had swallowed the edges. The wind had worn away the carvings. But still, the stones remained, patient in their silence. That morning, I knelt beside that half-buried stone and rested my hand upon it. Not with any grand intention, just a quiet gesture. And then, they brushed the moss away, gently, like revealing the face of a sleeping friend. It wasn't a task, it wasn't a duty, it was simply, and so it began. Not a quest, not truly. There was no end I sought, no banner to carry. But in the weeks that followed, I found myself returning to that trail again and again, walking slowly, listening carefully, watching for the faint curve of stone beneath leaves and time. One by one, I began to tend to them. Some were easy to find, stones tilted just enough to catch the eye. Others I discovered only by feel, my fingers brushing the rough edge beneath the soil like uncovering forgotten words. When I found one, I'd sit beside it for a while, not always to clean it straight away, sometimes just to be near it, to give it my presence, as if my being there allowed it to be seen again. I carried no tools, only a small cloth to brush away lichen, a flask of water to rinse the grime, and my hands which learned the language of stone more fluently with each passing day. I would tilt the stones upright again, never force, always with a kind of reverence, like returning something to its rightful place. There was something deeply satisfying in the slowness of it. Each stone was its own moment, a breath, a pause in the forest. I never tried to finish the path. That was never the point. There was no need to hurry, no goal to be reached. The doing of the thing was the reward. Some days I might tend to 2 stones, other days none at all. I'd simply walk the trail, listening to the bird song, noting the way the light dappled through the leaves, and stop when the earth called my attention to one of its half-buried sentinels. Each time, I'd pause, kneel, and offer a bit of care. And oh, how those moments filled me, not with pride but with presence. I felt more here than I had in all my years of riding from one call to the next. My hands grew rougher, yes. My knees ached sometimes from the damp ground. But my heart was still. There's something to be said for giving your time to something that cannot thank you. Something that does not need you, but accepts your care just the same. These stones never once asked to be cleaned or righted. And yet, in the doing of it, I felt we were both made more whole. Sometimes, when I would step back after setting one upright, I'd see the faintest line through the trees where the next stone might lie. Not always clearly, but enough to suggest continuity, as if the stones were still speaking to one another beneath the silence, a language only the earth and time could truly hear. I imagined them saying, "I am still here. I still remember." It's funny, I never told anyone about it. No companions to share the tale, no villagers to praise the deed. It was mine and the mountains and the winds. That was enough. One afternoon, I sat beside a particularly sunken stone, not much taller than a boot, and I remember watching a trail of ants march across its surface. They paused where my fingers had brushed the moss away, hesitating just a moment before continuing their steady line. I smiled at that. The stone was part of their world too. I had only passed through, and so it went, season after season. I'd return whenever the stillness found me again, whenever I longed for that unspoken connection between earth and hand and heart. Sometimes I'd find a stone had sunk back into the soil a little more, or a fresh vine had begun to curl along its edge. I never fought it. The earth always reclaims what it loves. I simply greeted it again like an old friend who'd nodded off during a conversation. I never made it to the sanctuary at the end of the trail, if it even still stands, but I don't feel that I missed it. The path itself was sacred enough. The tending was the sanctuary. Looking back now, I understand what that gentle labor gave me. It wasn't just something to do, it was something to be. A reminder that care does not need an audience. That devotion can live quietly in the soil, in the slant of stone, in the softened breath between steps. You see, my friend, I think we often believe that our value lies in the grand things, in what we build or earn or prove. But there is equal grace, perhaps even greater, in the things we mend quietly, expecting nothing. The path was not changed for anyone but the stones themselves, and me. And now, years later, I find that when I close my eyes, I can still feel the weight of that moss on my fingers. I can still see the sunlight breaking through the branches overhead. I can still hear the silence, full and steady, welcoming me to kneel once more. I suppose I'll return again one day, not to complete it, no, but to continue, to sit beside another old stone, brush away the years, and remember how beautiful it is to tend to forgotten things. Even now, as I rest beside this fire, I think of those waystones often. They were never just markers. They were invitations to slow down, to care, to be present, even when no one is watching. Perhaps that's why I've told you this tonight. Not to inspire, not to impress, only to share. Because sometimes a gentle task, one done in silence and stillness, is the most important one we can ever take up. And if you ever find your own stone, half buried and waiting. I hope you'll pause a while. Give it your hand. Give it your presence. That alone is enough. Ah, yes. Let me tell you about the quiet things, my friend. Not grand tales, no. Not tonight. But the small moments that stirred something gentle in me, something lasting. The kind that settles behind the ribs and hums softly when the wind leans just right. You remember the Waystone path I spoke of, don't you? That half-lost trail I once took it upon myself to tend. Though the path had faded and the world seemed to have moved on, I found it held more than stones and moss. It held moments, little ones, soft ones, the kind that ask for nothing and give everything. There was a time early on when I was walking between two stones, both recently uprighted, still damp from the morning mist. I'd made camp in a hollow that night, tucked beside an old sycamore whose roots curled like sleeping beasts, and just before I closed my eyes I noticed something in the underbrush, a shimmer barely more than a shadow, watching me from the fringe of moonlight. A fox, sleek, rust-colored, with eyes like polished amber. It didn't startle, didn't flee, just watched for a long while, and then it vanished as silently as it came. I thought little of it, until the next morning, when I found its prints in the soft soil not far from where I'd left a crust of bread. And again, the next night, and the one after that. For 2 full days the fox followed me. Never close, never bold. Just present. A flicker of russet between trunks. A stir of leaves when the path curved. We never truly met. No touch, no word, but still I felt a strange companionship. As though it had appointed itself witness to my slow, meandering care. Then one morning, it was simply gone. No sign, no paw print, no farewell, only a space in the woods that felt quieter than it had before. But I remember, not the details really, just the feeling, a kind of shared silence, a warmth in the chest that no fire could make. And not long after that, as I came upon a clearing I didn't recognize, a place where the trails split like threads of memory, I saw something that nearly took my breath. A tree, tall and gnarled, grown up from the very heart of what had once been a stone altar. The altar itself was shattered, half swallowed by ivy and thyme, but the tree stood proud within it, its trunk rising straight from the center, as though planted in prayer. The roots had broken through the stone, not in violence, but in quiet insistence, as if nature, tired of waiting, had decided to cradle the sacred in its own arms. I stood there a long while. No words came, only awe. That tree had not asked for that place. I imagine, but it had grown anyway. It had reached, and lifted, and flourished within ruins. And I remember thinking, perhaps we're not so different. Sometimes we find ourselves planted in broken places, and still I left a bit of honey on the altar's edge before I went on. I don't know why. It just felt right. Further along, the trail narrowed, a soft corridor through tall, whispering grass and drooping willows. That's where I saw the ribbon, faded, frayed at the edge, caught on a low branch, fluttering in the breeze like a sigh. Pale blue, with a strip of embroidery worn almost invisible. There were no houses nearby, no villages, no footpaths. I hadn't passed another soul in days, and yet, there it was, bright against the green. A child's ribbon, surely. Perhaps once tied to a braid or wrist, perhaps dropped by accident, or maybe left as a keepsake for the wind. There was something impossibly tender about it, like finding a note never meant to be read. I didn't take it, only touched it with one finger, then let it go. It fluttered a little more brightly after that, as if glad to be seen. Somewhere along that same stretch, I came to a ridge, a low rise where the land opened wide, and you could see the valley in full, all the way to where the clouds kissed the edge of the world. There, set like a forgotten tooth in the earth, stood the broken bones of a bell tower. No roof, no walls, just the frame, weathered timbers reaching skyward like the fingers of a dreaming hand. And at the very top, against all odds, the bell still hung, rusted and green with age, but whole. And then the wind picked up, not harsh, not loud, just steady, a soft breath across the stone, and the bell gave a single chime. It was hollow, slow, almost shy, but it rang, and oh, that sound! It echoed across the valley like memory itself, low and long and laced with something ancient. It wasn't loud enough to stir birds or beasts, but it stirred me deep in my center. A reminder, maybe, that even broken things can still sing, even silence has a voice, when the wind is kind. I stayed there well into the afternoon, watched the light shift on the stones, listened for another chime that never came. But one was enough, more than enough. You see, dear friend, these weren't events, not in the usual sense. No one would write songs about them. No records would be kept. But each one lives in me still, not as pictures or facts, but as feelings, a kind of warmth beneath the ribs, a soft glow behind the eyes. And the truth is, those are the things I remember best. The moments without fanfare, the ones that arrive uninvited, rest for a while in your bones, then quietly take their place in your heart's long story. There were dozens more, I suppose, a patch of wild thyme that grew in a perfect circle, a puddle that mirrored the moon so clearly I forgot which was sky, a trail of mushrooms in the shape of a question mark. Each one a whisper, each one a gift. And now, as I sit here beside the fire, with you wrapped in the hush of the mountain night, I feel them again, not as memories but as presence, as proof that quiet wonder still waits in the world, tucked in corners and cradled by stillness. We don't have to seek them. We only have to slow enough to see, and I'm so glad I can share them with you now. Not for praise, not for retelling, but for the simple joy of remembering out loud. So breathe with me, my friend. Let your thoughts drift like leaves on a gentle stream. Let the hush wrap around you like a woolen cloak. And if any one of these little moments finds a home in your heart, then tonight has been well spent. For in the end, I believe it's these quiet discoveries, the foxes, the bells, the ribbons and roots that shape us more than any battlefield ever could. Soft things, steady things, things that hum instead of shout. And perhaps when you dream tonight, one of them will visit you again, not to teach, not to test, only to be with you, as I am now. Lean back a little more, dear friend. That's it. Let the curve of the stone take your weight. Let the breath soften in your chest, the way embers quiet themselves when the wood has burned low and warm. I think this is the moment I've been waiting for. The part of the night where the hush deepens, and there's room enough to speak not just of where I've been, but of who I've become through it. There's something I've never said aloud before, not even to myself in those early days when I still thought silence was something to fill. It's this. There is a quiet kind of beauty, no, a sanctity in tending to things, no one will ever see. In doing a thing not for praise or witness or reward, but simply because the doing itself feels right. True. All those stones I lifted, all those gentle paths I cleared, they were not mine to begin with, and they are not mine now. And yet I gave them my time, my breath, my hands, and in return they gave me peace. Not loudly, not all at once, but in little drops like dew on early leaves, enough that before long I found myself full, without knowing when I'd been poured into. I've spent so many years unlearning the weight of being needed. That urgency, that proving when every movement had to serve a purpose, earn its keep, ring out with consequence. And then, one day, I knelt beside a forgotten stone in the woods, brushed it clean, and felt the first edge of that need begin to fade. There was no trumpet in the distance, no one to mark the moment. But inside me, something shifted, softly, like the turning of a page. You see, for a long while, I thought memory was meant to be sharp, like the shine on a sword. I thought remembering meant holding on to the exact way things were, the words spoken, the roads taken, the weight of armor on the shoulders. But I don't believe that anymore. Not really. Now, memory feels more like breath. It lives in the chest, not the mind, in the body, not the story. It doesn't need precision, only presence. Sometimes I remember the bell tower I told you about, not its height or its make, but the feeling of standing beneath it, hearing that single hollow chime ride the wind. That sound lives in me more than the structure ever did. The same is true of the fox that followed me. I couldn't draw its shape if you asked, but I can still feel the weight of its gaze, the way it kept just enough distance to make room for wonder, and the ribbon, the pale blue ribbon in the tree branch. I don't remember the branch exactly, only the color, the movement, the softness, the truth of it, even if the facts have faded. That's how memory is, I think. It forgets names so it can remember meaning. It forgets edges so it can keep what mattered most. And in this stillness, this life of resting and tending, I found that there's no longer a need to chase understanding like some distant prize. The questions that once nipped at my heels like restless hounds, they've quieted, not because I found answers, but because I stopped believing I had to. You might understand this too, my friend. The day when you finally lay down the burden of needing to know, of needing to explain or define or make sense of it all. That's not surrender. That's not giving up. That's grace. That's trust in the mystery. There's a kind of faith, not in gods or kings, but in the moment itself, that comes when you simply are. When you stop measuring time and start feeling it. When the rhythm of your breath becomes the only clock you need. Sometimes I'll lie here, just like this, and watch the smoke rise from the fire. Not going anywhere, just rising, curling, vanishing, and I think, yes, that's enough. That's everything. I've come to believe the world is full of sacred things that don't shout. Stones, ribbons, chimes, wind, the places where moss grows thicker because no one steps, the warmth of wool pulled around tired shoulders, a friend sitting quietly beside you, and you know something else. These moments don't arrive because we seek them. They arrive when we become available to them, when we make enough space in ourselves to be met by the gentle. That took me years to learn. To make space in my spirit. I used to be filled with echoes, orders given, names spoken, dangers recalled. But now there is room, and in that room peace comes. Not like a banner waving from a high tower, but like a quiet hand resting on the small of your back. Stillness has taught me that nothing needs to happen for a moment to be meaningful. That being seen isn't always better than being with. That care, real, quiet care, asks for no audience. You see, tending that path didn't change the world. Not in a way anyone could measure, but it changed me. And now, when I sit beside someone, beside you, I know how to be fully there. Not distracted, not searching, just present. That's the gift those forgotten stones gave me. That's the gift this quiet life continues to give. And if there's one thing I hope to give you in return, it's this. The knowing that you are enough, exactly as you are, even now. You don't need to strive. You don't need to explain. Your presence here by the fire, in the hush, is more than sufficient. In this light, every shadow softens. In this breath, every burden loosens. And in this moment, there is nothing missing. Let it hold you. Let it be enough. I know it is, my friend. I know you are. Now rest. The world will keep turning. The stars will keep their watch. And here beside me in the warmth of shared stillness, you may simply be. There it is. Do you feel it, my friend? That gentle weight, the quiet fullness of the night settling across our shoulders like a heavy woolen cloak. Not a burden. No, never that. Just the kind of warmth that makes you want to lean back, close your eyes, and let go of everything that came before this breath. I believe I've spoken enough for now. My voice, like the fire, has softened to embers. And in truth, I rather like this part of the evening, the part when words begin to yield to silence, and presence does all the speaking we need. Look how low the flame has dipped. Just a curl of golden light now, swaying softly in the lantern glass. I can feel its warmth still, brushing against my chest, threading into the wool of my cloak, seeping into my bones like a lullaby sung by the earth itself. It's a kind heat, not loud or urgent, but steady. The kind that says, you may rest now. All has been tended. I've placed my journal aside. There's no more to write tonight. The pages are content with what they've received. Sketches half formed, thoughts half finished. That's enough. Everything tonight feels softened around the edges. Even my breath, slow and deep, curls around me like a nest. The stones I once spoke of, they no longer feel like something unfinished. I used to think I was mending something broken. Now I understand I was simply keeping company with what had already found its own quiet rhythm. They were never waiting for me. They were never lost, just still. And now they rest again, without weight, without need. Part of the world once more, and so too do I. You see, there's a moment in the life of every tending, whether it's a path, a person, or a memory, when the hands must withdraw. Not because the work is complete, but because completion was never the purpose. Presence was. Care was. And now that moment has passed like the last light slipping over the ridge. I'm not done with life, no. The stars still call to me. The seasons still hold their pages open. There are still mornings I've yet to meet, breezes I've yet to breathe in, fires I've yet to light. But tonight, I am done. Not with forever, just with now. There is a kind of peace that comes only when we no longer reach. When the hands are still, and the thoughts have folded themselves into quiet shapes. That's where I am, here beside you. It's funny, isn't it? How we spend so much of our time moving across land through days between thoughts. And yet it's in the stopping that we remember who we are. In the resting, the returning, the releasing. That's when the truth settles into us like mist into the low hollows of the land. And tonight, truth feels like this. This moment is enough. This breath is enough. This closeness, this warmth, this hush, they are more than enough. I feel the weight of sleep beginning to gather behind my eyes, not all at once. Just a soft pull, like the tide, gentle and sure, and I do not resist it. I welcome it. I let it come as it pleases, in its own slow rhythm, like an old friend returning to find the bed made and the room quiet. There's something sacred in letting go, in knowing when to stop speaking, in choosing stillness not as a pause between tasks, but as the task itself. That's what tonight has taught me, or perhaps reminded me, because I think we all knew it once, when we were children, and the world spoke in lullabies, when rest was not a thing to earn, but a thing to trust. I trust it now. I trust this moment. I trust you here beside me. There's a comfort in your presence, not just in your listening, but in your simply being, sharing this fire, sharing this breath. You've made the night warmer than flame ever could. I hope you feel that too. Let your shoulders relax, friend. Let your jaw unclench. Let your hands loosen where they rest. There is nothing more to hold, nothing to do. We are past the edge of doing. We are deep in the heart of being, and it is soft here. I think of the stars above, even though we cannot see them through the willow's branches. They are there, as they have always been, patient, silent, sending down light that takes centuries to reach us, and asking nothing in return. I think the best parts of us are like that. Constant, unhurried, quietly radiant in ways we may never fully see. That's how I'd like to leave this night, not with a flourish but with a flicker, a slow dimming, the deep breath drawn not to speak, but to feel. And if sleep comes to you before I finish, let it. I'll still be here, even in the hush. My voice will follow you for a little while, fading like a lantern set gently in a stream, drifting into the dark, not to be lost, but to be carried. So here we are, my friend. The fire is low. The night is whole. The world asks nothing of us, and for once, we ask nothing of it in return. Only this, to rest, to breathe, to be. There now. You're still with me. I can feel it like the warmth of the fire near my hand, steady and quiet. The night has grown deep, hasn't it? The stars are somewhere above, sleeping behind clouds or simply watching from their endless perch, but we don't need them to see. We've had enough light, enough hush, enough being. I want to thank you, dear friend, truly, for sharing this small corner of the world with me, for listening, not just with your ears, but with your presence. There's a kind of comfort that comes only when one soul sits quietly beside another. It doesn't ask for anything. It doesn't press, or prod, or demand. It just is, like a river that keeps flowing long after the last footstep fades. And tonight, you've been that comfort, a stillness I could rest my thoughts beside, a gentleness I could speak into, and be met with silence that understood. That's rare, and it means more to me than I know how to say. The fire's grown soft now, just little cracks and whispers nestled in the embers. I rather like it this way, No more flame reaching upward. Just a glow, low and kind. The sort of light that stays close to the ground, like a secret being kept. The lantern flickers too, see? Not from wind, there's none left, but from its own quiet rhythm, like a heartbeat, or a lullaby half-hummed in the chest. Even the night seems to be holding its breath now. And so, I think, I've no more stories to tell you. Not tonight. Not because they've run out, but because this moment is enough. It holds everything we need. Firelight, stillness, breath, and the closeness of someone who chose to stay. You've given me such a gift just by being here. And if I could give something in return, something soft and lasting, it would be this feeling that you are safe, that you are held, that you have done enough. And now, it is time to rest. Let the worries drift like smoke. Let the breath come slow and deep. Let the body sink into the earth's waiting arms, and let the mind loosen its grip on the day. You are not alone. I am here still, and I will stay until sleep takes us both, quiet and sure as dusk. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to move. Just let yourself feel how good it is to be still, to be warm, to be listened to, and loved in silence. Sleep well, my friend. You are safe.